My arm is going numb. I could barely get the words out. The ER check-in counter dug into my hands while I leaned against it trying to breathe. Everything felt tight. My chest, my throat, even my vision. The fluorescent lights above me blurred together like white streaks. The nurse behind the desk kept typing. "Do you have anxiety?" she asked without looking up. I blinked at her. "What?" "History of panic attacks." "My chest hurts," I said again, "and my dad died from a heart attack when he was 38. That finally made her glance at me. But only for a second. Behind her, another nurse laughed quietly and said, "Every college kid thinks they're dying during finals." Heat rushed into my face. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Then a doctor walked past the desk holding a tablet. Older guy, calm, expensive watch. Everyone around him moved faster when he appeared. The nurse turned my chart toward him. 22-year-old female, chest pain. He scanned it for maybe 2 seconds. "Vitals are stable," he said. "It's anxiety, send her back." I stared at him in disbelief. "You didn't even check me." But he was already walking away. A security guard stepped closer to me and pointed toward the waiting room. "Miss, you need to sit down." Right then, I realized nobody there actually thought something was wrong with me. I went back to the waiting area holding discharge papers I didn't understand. Around me, people coughed, Barbies cried, televisions buzzed. Everything felt distant and muffled except the pressure in my chest. I texted my sister Marisol. "I think they think I'm faking." She replied almost instantly. "I'm coming, don't leave." I tried focusing on my breathing. In, out, but it kept getting worse. The pressure spread into my shoulder. Sweat soaked through my hoodie even though the room felt freezing cold. My fingers started trembling uncontrollably. Then the ER doors burst open. Paramedics rushed a middle-aged man inside holding his chest, and nurses immediately wheeled him through the back doors without hesitation. No waiting. No questions. I watched them disappear and felt something cold settle into my stomach. We had the same symptoms, but he looked like someone they believed. I stood up again, dizzy this time, and walked back to the front desk. The nurse sighed the second she saw me. "Please," I whispered, "something is really wrong." She kept staring at her computer. "You need to calm down." The room suddenly tilted sideways. My knees buckled. And the last thing I remember before everything went black was hearing someone scream as I hit the floor. When I opened my eyes again, someone was shouting, "Charge to 200. Bright white lights burned above me. My chest felt like it had exploded from the inside out. Hands were everywhere, pulling at wires, pressing against my ribs, adjusting tubes near my face. Then my whole body jerked violently. The shock hit so hard I couldn't even scream. A second later, air slammed back into my lungs, and I gasped like I'd been underwater. "She's back," someone said. Everything sounded far away. I turned my head weakly and saw Dr. Mercer standing near the monitor with his arms folded while nurses rushed around him. "She fainted during a panic episode," he said flatly. "That can happen." One nurse looked confused, but her cardiac labs. "Repeat vitals," he interrupted sharply. I stared at him through blurry vision. "I told you," my voice cracked. "Something was wrong." "You need to stay calm," he replied. "Your anxiety is escalating your symptoms." The terrifying part was that after hearing it enough times, I started wondering if maybe he was right. Maybe I really was overreacting. Maybe I embarrassed myself for nothing. About an hour later, Marisol stormed into the room looking furious. "What happened?" she demanded. I looked away from her. "I think I scared everybody." Her expression changed immediately. "Leslie, you collapsed." Nobody had explained anything to us. Nurses kept entering my room, changing bags or checking machines, then leaving before we could ask questions. Everything felt rushed. Messy. Wrong. Marisol noticed bruises forming around my IV and frowned. Why does it look like nobody knows what they're doing? A clipboard had been left beside my bed during the chaos. She picked it up and started scanning the papers. Then her face changed. What does this mean? I looked up weakly. What? She pointed at one line. Abnormal cardiac findings. Before either of us could read further, Dr. Mercer walked in and immediately grabbed the clipboard from her hands. That's not for family review. Marisol crossed her arms. Then explain it. They're common false positives in anxious patients, he said coldly. Then why did she flatline? She didn't flatline for long. The way he said it made my stomach turn. Outside my curtain, two voices whispered urgently. She should have been admitted hours ago. Drop it, another voice snapped. Mercer already cleared her. I froze. Until that moment, I'd been scared that I might be dying. Now I was scared because it sounded like someone already knew I was. Marisol slowly turned toward Dr. Mercer. What exactly, she asked quietly, are you not telling us? The next time my heart stopped, the entire ER saw it happen. 1 second I was lying in the hospital bed, trying to breathe through the crushing pain in my chest. The next, alarms exploded around me. Nurses rushed toward my bed, so fast one of them slammed into the doorway. Someone yelled for the crash cart. Another voice shouted my blood pressure numbers, while hands grabbed at my gown and IV lines. Then everything started fading again. I remember hearing Marisol screaming my name somewhere nearby. When I opened my eyes for a split second, people were staring through the trauma bay doors. Patients, families, everyone in the waiting room. A nurse climbed onto the side of my bed to start chest compressions. Come on, Leslie. The heart monitor gave one long, horrible tone. Then darkness swallowed everything again. Later, pieces came back to me through fragments. Voices, arguments, someone crying. I found out afterward that people in the waiting room recognized me immediately. That's the girl they sent away earlier. Several people started recording on their phones while doctors worked on me. Marisol told me security tried pulling her back while she screamed at Dr. Mercer. You sent her back out there. And according to Marisol, he actually tried blaming me. She failed to explain how severe her symptoms were. He told everyone nearby. But my sister pulled out her phone right there in the middle of the ER. No, she didn't. She showed them my text messages. I can't breathe right. My chest hurts worse now. They won't listen to me. People in the waiting room started turning against the staff after that. One woman reportedly yelled, "She told you exactly what was happening." Then something even worse came out. A younger resident quietly admitted to Marisol that my first EKG wasn't normal. And Dr. Mercer had never actually evaluated me before dismissing me. That changed everything. Suddenly hospital administrators appeared trying to stop people from filming. Nurses looked panicked. Staff started avoiding eye contact with my sister completely. By then, my condition had gotten so bad, they rushed me upstairs for emergency surgery. I barely remember being pushed through the hallways under giant ceiling lights while machines beeped around me. I just remember being terrified. Marisol stayed outside the operating room demanding answers. The hospital refused to give her my records. They're still being updated, someone told her. Updated. That word stuck in her head immediately. Because by then, it no longer felt like they were confused. It felt like they were fixing something. Hours later, while she waited outside surgery alone, the young resident slipped her a folded piece of paper and walked away without saying much. It was the timestamp from my original EKG. The abnormal result had come back before Dr. Mercer sent me back into the waiting room. Meaning he either ignored it or never bothered looking at it at all. Then Marisol's phone rang from an unknown number. She answered carefully. A woman whispered through the speaker, "Don't trust the chart they give you." I don't remember the surgery itself. Most of what I know from that night came from Marisol afterward. While surgeons were operating on my heart upstairs, she answered the anonymous call alone in a dark hallway near the ICU elevators. "Who is this?" she asked. The woman sounded terrified. "I work in the ER," she whispered. "I can't say my name." Marisol immediately knew something was seriously wrong. "What happened to my sister?" There was a pause. Then the nurse said the sentence that changed everything. "Her chart was edited after she crashed." Marisol stopped cold. "What?" "The original notes are gone," the nurse whispered. "Someone changed them after she flatlined." Then the call disconnected. A few minutes later, hospital administrators approached Marisol in the waiting area. They acted calm. Too calm. One of them sat beside her and folded his hands carefully. "We understand this has been traumatic for your family." Marisol stared at him. "Someone just told me my sister's records were altered." The woman beside him immediately jumped in. "There's a lot of confusion during emergency situations. We strongly encourage families not to spread misinformation online." Then came the part that made my sister realize they were scared. "We are willing to cover all treatment expenses related to tonight," the man added carefully, "if your family prefers privacy while this situation is reviewed internally." Marisol looked at him in disbelief. "You think this is about money?" Neither of them answered directly. After that, she started recording every conversation, every excuse, every contradiction. Around dawn, the young resident found her again near the ICU. He looked nervous just standing there. "You didn't get this from me," he said quietly. Then he handed her printed audit logs from the hospital system. The timestamps made my sister's stomach drop. 11:52 p.m., chart accessed by Dr. Evan Mercer. 12:07 a.m., clinical notes modified. 12:11 a.m., patient refusal documented. But at 12:11 I'd already been unconscious. I couldn't have refused anything. The resident looked sick saying it out loud. "She never declined testing." "I know," he answered. Not long after, the surgeon finally came out to speak with my family. "Your sister survived." Marisol told me she almost collapsed hearing those words. But then the surgeon explained what they found. I had suffered a coronary artery tear. Something serious. Something that should have been caught hours earlier. That's when every piece finally connected. My family history had been ignored. My abnormal EKG had been dismissed. And after my heart stopped, someone altered the records to protect themselves. By morning, Marisol uploaded the evidence online. My text messages, the timestamps, the audit logs. The response exploded almost instantly. News stations picked up the story. Reporters gathered outside the hospital entrance. Former patients started posting their own stories about Dr. Mercer, dismissing serious symptoms as anxiety. By afternoon, the hospital announced he'd been placed on leave pending investigation. But before investigators could question him, he disappeared. Nobody could find him anywhere in the hospital. Late that night, an investigator finally approached my family, carrying a recovered copy of the deleted chart. He opened the file to one highlighted sentence written before I collapsed. "Patient may be experiencing active cardiac event. Recommend immediate admission." Dr. Mercer knew from the beginning. And he sent me back out anyway. 3 weeks later, I watched the hospital investigation from a recovery room with a scar running down the center of my chest. Every movement still hurt. Even breathing felt different now. The tablet balanced on my lap streamed live testimony from a conference room downstairs, while Marisol sat beside my bed holding my hand. That was the first time I heard the full truth. Investigators confirmed my EKG had shown dangerous abnormalities almost immediately after I arrived at the ER. 2 nurses had flagged it correctly and recommended cardiac observation. Dr. Mercer overrode both recommendations. Without examining me, without speaking to me for more than a few seconds. The investigation uncovered why he did it. The ER had been overloaded for weeks. Administrators had pressured doctors to reduce wait times, and Mercer had already been warned about patient backups during his shifts. So he started making assumptions. Young patients were low risk. Women with chest pain were probably anxiety. And according to testimony from several nurses, he labeled me an anxiety case before he ever reviewed my results. But the part that made the room go silent was the chart audit. At 12:07 a.m., after my heart stopped, Dr. Mercer edited my records himself. He added a false note claiming I declined further testing. A test nobody ever offered me. When investigators displayed the timeline on the screen, I couldn't look away. 11:14 p.m., abnormal EKG detected. 11:22 p.m., discharge approved. 12:01 a.m., patient collapses in waiting room. 12:07 a.m., chart modified. Marisol started crying beside me. Not loud, just quiet tears she'd been holding in for weeks. Then the investigator read the deleted sentence recovered from the original chart. Patient may be experiencing active cardiac event. Recommend immediate admission. That broke me. Because for days after the collapse, part of me still wondered if maybe I had overreacted. Maybe I really was dramatic. Maybe I should have calmed down. But hearing those words finally destroyed that guilt. I had known something was wrong with my body. And they ignored me anyway. Recovery after surgery took months. Walking upstairs left me exhausted. Certain monitor sounds triggered panic attacks instantly. I stopped sleeping normally because I kept waking up hearing phantom flatline alarms in my head. And every time I looked at the scar on my chest, I remembered lying in that waiting room begging people to listen. Outside the hospital, things kept getting worse for Dr. Mercer. Security footage leaked online showing me collapsing after being sent away from triage. Millions of people watched it. News stations replayed his words repeatedly. It's anxiety, send her back. Former co-workers came forward saying he had dismissed other patients the same way for years. Families reopened complaints. Lawsuits piled up fast. The hospital settled with my family before the case reached trial. Then the state medical board permanently revoked Dr. Mercer's license. The doctor who decided I wasn't worth examining lost the career he built his entire life around. And me. I changed too. Before that night I hated confrontation. I apologized constantly. I worried about sounding dramatic or difficult. Not anymore. About a year later, the hospital invited me back to speak during emergency staff training. Walking into that same waiting room again felt surreal. Same fluorescent lights. Same rows of chairs. Same front desk where nobody believed me. Only this time, the room went completely silent when I spoke. I looked at the nurses sitting in front of me and said the one thing I wished someone had understood that night. The scariest part wasn't the pain, I told them. It was realizing nobody believed me. Nobody interrupted. Nobody looked away. Then I glanced toward the exact spot where I collapsed. Hours after they called it anxiety, I said, my heart stopped, and that changed every life in this hospital forever.